If you wanna give all your bands up, not me, I'ma get me a land truck. 720, my minimum credit score. If you know what I know, you can better yours. Financial literacy. Financial literacy. Financial literacy. Financial literacy.
Credit, I ain't spending no debit. Wow, that's stupid. Rather get paid if I use it. Financial literacy, my only hope. Ain't living rich and dying broke. So
we have the queen. We have the queen.
Hello. Hey, Octavia, what's going on?
Hey
guys.
Hey.
The queen is here. Wow, that is amazing. Thank you so much for
Let's go. Make some noise. Make some noise.
Wow. So we've just been chopping it up here, you know what I mean, and trying to, get our mindset right. So we really appreciate you doing this for our culture. And this is something that I believe our culture really needs, because they have no idea. And I know you specialize in a lot of business asset protections, but you also have an understanding of the law, which that's my passion now. The law. It's my if the Most High blessed me with this, He would have blessed me to be some type of lawyer of something. You know what I mean?
Hey, it's never too late. Go ahead and get it on.
Yeah, that's a big fact.
So thank you so much. So guys, we want to go ahead and start it off because I know the queen is busy. So let's start it off. Thank you so much for tapping in with the 4 Hour Culture podcast. We have Octavia, the infamous, the blessed attorney. And I'm gonna go ahead and let you go ahead and introduce yourself. Who is Octavia? And please give us your whole full bio. We have Larry Carroll, the King, the King Larry. He's our second VP for Recession Proof, if you don't know.
The Pennsylvania chapter.
Pennsylvania chapter, okay.
How I do it, like, let me see. Oh, right there. He's the second VP, and he's the third VP, Noel Niches, hailing from PA, and of course me, Tommy Lee. I'm the president, you know what I mean?
Yes.
PA chapter. And again, I want to say thank you so much for taking your time out. So we're going to go ahead and guys, let's just be organic with it, because I have some serious questions. So I don't know if y'all got questions, you know what I mean? But I'm going to let her go ahead and introduce herself. Please, Queen, go ahead and introduce yourself. Who is Octavia and what your business?
Yep. Absolutely. Well, thank you all for having me. It has just been an absolute pleasure. I've had the privilege of working with Tommy for some time and seeing you guys on the way. But I am Octavia Otusajo. I am the founder and CEO. Specialize in business and asset protection and estate and trust planning. That is all we do, right? So the whole idea here is to preserve and protect and grow your wealth through legal structures, essentially.
That's dope.
And to expand on that, because I know some folks can be modest and humble. Let's talk that talk, okay?
Okay.
So, how long have you been an attorney?
Oh my gosh, I have been an attorney a little over 5 years, but I've always worked in compliance and regulatory affairs. So as an attorney, this is actually a second career for me. I started out as an engineer. I am a FAMU grad from Florida. And so I worked in regulatory and compliance for many years, and working with in-house counsel, decided that I wanted to pursue law. And so I resigned from those corporate entities out there, went to law school, full time, and launched a whole new career.
That's why you said it's never too late.
It's never too late. It's never too late.
And engineering is a major. That's not like a little, like a little dog. That's some.
We can't gloss over that.
Yeah, a lot of people don't know that about me. So you guys are kind of getting these little personal nuggets, right?
Okay. Well, we're going off on a little tangent from what we had planned question-wise, but again, that's just very interesting to me. What made you want to get into engineering, and then what made you decide to make the transition into law?
Absolutely. So I have always had a very analytical, thought process or what have you. Was always very strong in math and just kind of linear planning, I guess you could say. And so started out with my educational realm in terms of engineering. And throughout my earlier career, was really able to just maximize regulations and compliance aspect from a manufacturing perspective. So my engineering degree is in bioprocessing and food engineering. We have a lot of sciences as well as the application of engineering. And so I've worked in manufacturing for many years. I worked in packaging for many years, branding, all of those things. And so seeing how big corporations operate, how they protect their interests through contracts, and how they network within other communities of vendors and their employees and things of that nature is what I initially brought over to my law firm with business law. Making that transition from corporate America, I was a part of a global sourcing team that was responsible for bringing in international goods as well as domestic goods and getting them on the shelf in private brand labeled products. And so working directly with manufacturers as well as corporate entities and regulatory bodies like FDA is where my interests continue to peak in the law, and I decided to pursue law in that realm.
We got to get that up for the queen. That we got to get that up for the queen. Yo.
Absolutely. That's
A whole different
That's big.
concept.
So real quick, another thing I noticed is you said you went to FAMU. Are you from Florida?
I am from Florida, born and raised. I grew up in St. Petersburg, Florida.
Wow.
I currently
Okay.
reside in Maryland, but throughout my career and education and all that wonderful stuff, I've kind of traveled mostly in the South between some of the southern states, but landed ultimately in Maryland because I initially thought that I wanted to focus on intellectual property law as a whole, to pair the law with the engineering background. And so I came to the DMV area because I did an internship at the U.S. Patent and Trademark Office in Virginia.
Mm.
And that wasn't what kept my interest. So I decided to stay on the business law side, but I also do have the privilege of being able to offer trademark services to my clients to protect those brands and those types of things because I understand how the U.S. Patent and Trademark Office works, being that I have decades.
Trademarks, that's a serious business because already the IP is everything. If you don't have your IP, then you're subjected to everybody else's, and I know how huge that is. So, what's your website, your Instagrams, if people want to get at you? And because I'm gonna tap in with some real questions after this, so I just want you to get yourself out there and let the world know that we really have an official. We're on deck here, man, and she's beautiful, and she's a queen, and she's from the recession-proof family. So, how can we get in contact with you, Queen?
Absolutely. So you can follow me on Instagram for legal tips, freebies, webinars coming up. I have a series of webinars that I'm going to be launching for the balance of the year for us to get prepared for a lot of changes that are coming in 2024 regarding reporting for businesses, LLCs, corporations, and trusts as well. And so you can follow me on Instagram at Octavia Kennedy, ESQ. That's Octavia Kennedy with a C. ESQ. I'm also have a Facebook marketing. You can follow me at Octavia Kennedy / Canton Law Firm, as well as you can follow me or check out more information at my website, which is going to be Canton V, which is going to be virtual, cantonvlaw.com.
Awesome. Thank you so much. We really appreciate that. Really appreciate that. So I'm going to go ahead and start it off since, we've done business before and you were extraordinary in your experience and the stuff that you helped me with. So I have a question. So, me being the king that I am, I want to develop a strategy where I have a business trust and I also have a irrevocable family trust. Mm-hmm. Now, I want to use my business trust as my public facing entity to commingle with the world. Does the business trust has to be irrevocable or can it be revocable? what would you recommend? How does someone in my situation handle that?
Absolutely. That is a great question. So there is, just to clarify, there is a difference between a revocable trust and an irrevocable trust, right? And so you having an irrevocable trust, you probably already understand the dynamics of that. But for others who may not know, a revocable trust basically allows you to have flexibility to be able to make changes while you're living, right? All trusts are living trusts, right? Regardless if they're revocable or irrevocable, because you are creating them while you are alive. All right.
Okay.
So the living trust. So the revocable trust is going to have you as the grantor or the creator of that trust, also as the trustee of that trust, who's going to manage and control the assets that are in that particular trust. And then you'll have your beneficiaries for that. Generally, a revocable trust is going to use your social security number for identification and tax purposes when it comes to your assets, right? So with that, there's no true separation between you as your individual self in your name and the assets that you place in a revocable trust, because it's you taking basically an A-B relationship, A being yourself, B being the revocable trust with your social security number.
So why would somebody do that? What would they do it for then if there's no separation?
Sure. So generally, I think it's general knowledge that people think, oh, I just need a revocable trust and I only have a few assets. Maybe their estate isn't as large as some others may. And so they say, okay, I just want a few things protected and I want to make sure that my children or the next generation is taken care of with these assets. And the other part of that is that they may not recognize that there are other options out there, right? Because most of the times what we see are wills and living trusts, but there are many different types of trusts to choose from, not just a living revocable trust. Okay. So the contrast to that is an irrevocable trust. I know people say revocable. It's not revocable. It's irrevocable. That's the proper way to say it. Right. And what that means is the grantor or the creator of that trust is going to be a third party. It's going to be somebody different other than yourself. You can be the trustee of that trust, manage those assets, and then have your beneficiaries declared as you see fit, which beneficiaries can be an individual, it could be a corporation, some of those different types of things. The contrasting difference is that your irrevocable trust is going to have an EIN, which is going to establish it separately from yourself as an individual or the creator as an individual, because it's going to have its own identity through the EIN versus a social security number, just like you would with a regular LLC or a regular corporation. Is going to establish itself as an entity in the eyes of the federal government.
Wow, we got to get now. Y'all just gave us the deal. Y'all, you probably know a lot of people right there.
I got a question now.
Yes, so let me answer his business trust question. So you say business trust or personal trust or what have you.
Right,
it really depends on what your ultimate goal is and what you're trying to protect, preserve, protect you, right? Your individuality. Yes. So the best way that you would do that is creating that irrevocable trust, having it in EIN. It's going to establish itself as a completely separate entity, but you still have the privilege to act as its trustee and control those assets during your lifetime.
So the business trust will be an irrevocable trust as well.
That is correct. That is the most comprehensive trust that one can have. And again, there's many different types of trust. You can have life insurance trust. You can have charitable trust. You can have special needs trust. There's so many different types, right? And I know you have a question for me, but before that comes through, I just want to say each trust is unique. Each trust is unique to your goals and the needs of you and your business and your family. So having cookie cutter trust or copying someone else's trust, that may not be effective for you. And a trust is pointless if it doesn't do what you want it to do and accomplish when you need it to.
Larry, go ahead, Larry.
I'm actually one of those people that everything you just said, it went over their head. So for a person who's just starting and who's interested in potentially putting a trust together, at what point would a person feel like, okay, I'm at a point now where I need to get a trust, or is there a qualification, or can you just make a trust today or tomorrow?
Sure. So the beauty of a trust is really for you to remove assets from your personal name and your personal liability. Okay. That includes personal assets as well as business assets. Okay. Because anytime that you have something that's in your name that's connected to you, anytime that you have an incident, an accident, a claim, a bankruptcy, a divorce, anything that is associated with you personally or titled in your name comes into question during those events. Now, you have the ability to transfer those assets. Sometimes it can be a gift. Sometimes you may have to pay a transfer tax to get them into those particular trusts. That's why you have to look at everything on a unique and one-on-one basis. But the idea here is to get things out of your name so that if someone brings a claim against you or a dispute, or if you're in a divorce, well, I don't have nothing, you know?
I've been reading a lot of, so Noel, he gave me this amazing book 5 years ago, but I never really tapped into it. And it was what the Rockefellers do, and they always are preaching is control everything, own nothing. How would you explain that to an 18-year-old graduating? Should he get a trust immediately or no?
Absolutely. So I would say if you have assets, and assets can be anything that is pertaining to your bank accounts, all the way to real property that you may have. If you have $1,000 sitting in your bank account, that's an asset. Okay. If you had an incident and your car insurance wasn't able to cover that based on your limitations that you have in your policy, then the next thing that they're going to go after is the money that you have in your bank account. You may not have a home at that time, you may not have other assets, but that's available assets to you. That also applies for your business. If you have excess cash sitting in your business, it's a liability for you. You need to diversify, move that cash into personal accounts. You need to move that cash into trust accounts, because once it sit there, if you have a claim or a dispute, it's going to go against that particular business bank account. So as an 18-year-old, the best advice that I would give is to start out being as anonymous as possible. And that's kind of hard to do in the social media world that we live in, right? We all have handles and different names that we can use. And that's really a benefit. If you have a handle that's not your name, I may not know what your name is, right? And that's the same thing that I would advise an 18-year-old starting out to do, right? Get an LLC, get a trust potentially, and start making moves with those entities so that your personal name and your personal social security number is not out here on all of these credit card applications and apartment applications and any other thing that you might sign up for over the years.
Child support, guys. I'm not saying that. I'm just saying child support, guys. I'm just saying child support. If you got child support out there, you really need that. I'm not gonna say no. Be honest. I'm not being ethical here. So, all right, Queen. Thank you very much. So,
we want to do things in a legal manner, right? In a legal manner. The laws of our great country is based on contractual agreements. If you think about everything that you do, if you form a business, if you make a relationship with someone, it's on paper. Yes, you can have an oral agreement, you can have a handshake agreement that doesn't apply to all states, but generally it's going to be on paper. And so that's where you want to protect yourself. That's where you want to protect your entities and your assets, is through contracts. And a trust is only a contract. It's a glorified, complex contract. Okay. And you want to make sure that the terms and conditions in that contract are exactly what you want it to be when you are no longer here and you can't speak to it.
Our constitutional right? That's everybody's constitutional right to have a contract, private.
Yes, a freedom to contract.
There it is. So, Ease, you got anything for the Queen? Because I'm gonna go ahead in. I want to know like her overall everyday life? Like, what do you listen to? Like, what type of music do you listen to? What's your last podcast you listen to?
You know, you're right. I do got before we get into all that. Yeah, I do got
I want to
so
Jesus,
once this dude step on the gas, it does not. Once this dude step on the gas, it does not let up. So let me get out what I gotta get out. So I did. So you're also into real estate.
Yes.
All right. So
that's his baby.
Telling all my business. Telling all my business.
No, I read the bio. And also I also noticed that you mentioned something about creative financing also.
Yes.
And so can you shed some light on that? We talking owner financing, subject to wraparound mortgages. What does that look like for you?
Yes. So it goes all back, guys. It goes back to contracts. Okay. So anytime that you're doing anything with real estate, you know that there's a contract involved, right? There's a purchase sale agreement. There's a transfer agreement that you're doing if you're doing wholesaling, right? Whatever it is, you have a brokerage agreement. Anything that you do in real estate is going to be contract based. Okay. So what we do in Carter Capital Investments is that we create and do creative finance options where we're acting as the bank. Okay. So we can create notes through contract, wraparound mortgages. If a property has a mortgage, we can create another mortgage on top of that and then take the difference between those two mortgages for cash flow. That's one way of doing that. You can take over properties. We have foreclosure properties where we may take someone out of a pre-foreclosure, take over that particular mortgage for that property, but take title to that deed on that particular property while we take over the mortgage. So there's so many different ways that you can acquire property, guys, without going to the bank. And you can become your own bank doing that when you know how contracts work and being able to structure that in such a way that everybody wins at the end.
Okay, cool. Now, also, I wanted to say, with these interest rates being super high right now, it now would seem like a good time to grab some subject to deals, right? Would you agree?
You can get a subject to deal, lock somebody into a 30-year mortgage on top of that, maybe even bring them down a little bit for off of that interest rate. It could be a possibility to do that, especially if you're trying to get somebody into a property where they may not have the credit, but they have the money. So there's many different ways that you can help others. It's a helpful situation too, because we all know that there's a housing shortage out here, and to be able to create something unique that works for everyone, you're getting a cash flow, someone's getting a home and a property that they can afford to live in. It's just a win-win for everyone.
What advice would you give to an 18-year-old out of high school just trying to figure out what to do and where to go? And like, what advice would you give them for them if they're trying to figure life out, what to do to be prosperous? What direction would you point them in?
If you had to talk to your 18-year-old and you had an 18-year-old son, what would you tell him to do?
I would tell that son of mine to just explore different types of things, right? I'm an institutionally educated person, but I don't necessarily believe that that's the only way to go these days, and especially to be able to create success and have longevity and build wealth for your family. So I would advise them to explore different options, right? Shadow people of different professions, entrepreneurs, somebody that owns a mental health of company, someone that owns an apparel company, maybe shadow a pharmacist or someone else. Get some different ideas, because a lot of times when we're going into that 18-year-old stage of life, we don't have all the experiences. We don't know careers that exist. We don't know that there's somebody behind the scenes operating a camera making 6 figures a year. Those types of things are not exposed to us. So I would encourage an 18-year-old boy to just get as much exposure to different avenues that he has the ability to do, especially, these kids are having gap years now. They're staying home with mom and dad longer. Use that time to explore so that you know exactly where you want to spend your time, energy in, and don't be afraid to try something different. Like I said, I started out as an engineer. I started out in manufacturing with Fortune 500 companies, and now I'm an entrepreneur in a whole different field with my own firm. So, and don't be tied to something specifically. Explore, make a good living, do the right thing, help people out when you can. but don't limit yourself to just what you think you may know, because there's so much knowledge out there that we, especially as a community, haven't tapped into.
Can you explain to me when they say the splitting of the powers once you sign the contract? There's a legal title and there's an equity portion of it when it comes to a trust. Am I saying it accurately?
Sure. There's you have title and equity in any type of asset, right? So it's not just trust specific. So I may have a title in a particular business or entity or a particular property, but somebody may have an equity interest in it, right? So an example of that, if we're talking about real estate, I may have title to the real estate, but someone may have a secured interest in it, in terms of if it got sold or if a lien goes against that particular property. So that could be an equitable interest.
So in regarding asset protection, how does it protect someone if they putting it in a trust, because they're splitting the what they say, splitting the legal title and the beneficiary title? Is that am I saying it correctly?
Sure. So what you're referring to is when you create a trust, remember there's three parties that are involved. You have the grantor or the creator of the trust, you have the trustee or the manager of the trust, and you have the beneficiaries of the trust who are going to ultimately inherit those assets. Okay. When you create a trust, you have all three of those parties a part of that creation and maintenance of that trust. Okay. So as a trustee of the trust, your trust is going to have title of those assets, and you're going to be managing those assets for the benefit of your beneficiaries. Okay. Your beneficiaries don't have control. They may not even have access to those particular assets at that time, but they will in the future. Okay. And so as a manager or trustee of those assets, you have a fiduciary duty, right? You can't spend all the money, you can't sell all the property and not take care of the proceeds to reinvest back into the trust assets, because those beneficiaries are expecting an inheritance.
Right. Okay. So I don't own it. So if anything was to happen to me as the trustee, if I was to get sued, they can't take nothing because I don't own this. The trust owns it.
That is correct, right? So the beauty of an irrevocable trust, having an EIN with that, also having a third party grantor, is that connection between the title and the equity of those assets are not tied to that trustee at that time, and they're not tied to that beneficiary either.
Tap in with the queen, do some more research on asset protection and trust, because that's where we need to be at now. So let me ask you, so if we have a life insurance, so I know you know about life insurance policies, and how do someone build generational wealth?
Yeah. So I just want to disclaim that I am not a tax and a financial expert. I am a legal subject matter expert, right? But one of the ways, you mentioned the Rockefellers earlier, and one of the ways that the Rockefellers initially built their wealth was through insurance. Okay. They had those first policies that were left into the trust, right? And so you can retitle your insurance policies with the trust being the owner of the policy. That's one way, instead of you as an individual being the owner of the policy. Or you can have the trust be a primary or secondary beneficiary of the policy. Okay. So there's different ways that you can do that, but that is essentially how they created their wealth. And that's how a lot of the wealthy continue to do it today. They get these $1 million, $2 million, $5 million policies. And going back to that 18-year-old son, get those policies while you're young, and they're super cheap, right? I still have a policy right now that my parents got when I was in college. It's like less than $100, right? And so you want to get policies early while you're young, get those cheap rates, those high policy amounts, and be able to leave that to your family. Have that go into the trust. If you have $1 million policy, guess what that trust value is going to be at the end of your life? At least $1 million. And that's going to go to your children. You can declare if they get it outright. You can declare if it's going to be staggered over a period of time. I have a client right now that has required her beneficiaries to open up a brokerage account first
Real quick, just for clarification, this is me if I were getting a life insurance policy for myself, not one for my. Okay, so it would be one for me, and I would just. Okay, gotcha. For a second, I'm sorry. I thought you meant like get a policy for the kids.
No, for yourself, right?
Okay,
for the kids too, though. You get one for
you absolutely can. You can get it for everybody. Okay. You know, it can be for your nephew.
That's what they do. That's what I'm
saying. Nephews, your best friend, whoever.
That's what they do, and all the other nations do it.
Yes, it has to go into the trust, because when you have insurance proceeds, there are times where those insurance proceeds can be declared as income for the person that's going to be paid out to, and they may have to pay taxes on that. And our laws, guys, our laws change almost annually. Okay. And so what may have worked for somebody 2 or 3 or 5 or even 10 years ago may not work for us, and it may not work for the next generation that we're leaving behind. There's a lot of discussion right now on the Secure Act and how that's impacting retirement that used to be able to be passed on, like an IRA or a 401k that could be passed on to the beneficiaries, and then they could pull from that over time. Where that is now changing, where they have to take those proceeds within 10 years. It's no longer a lifetime effect. Within 10 years, and they have to pay taxes on that as they withdraw it. Wow. Just like you would have if you withdraw it to make a loan to yourself, or whatever the case may be, based on, those parameters, if you wasn't 55 and a half or whatever the age may be. So we have to, as a community, we have to understand what these things do and how they affect us, trust and law changes, because they affect our inheritance options.
Wow. Wow.
That's a bar.
That
is another bar. You drop it.
And this is for our culture. If y'all ever heard, this is for our culture, where we are really speaking with the intellectual, the cream of the crop of our culture, where we're trying to bring this information to you guys now. And I know it's a lot of information out here, but pick one topic and subject and build upon that. And again, if you want to reach out to Octavia, can you please again, give us your information where they can get with you? And
absolutely. You can find me on Instagram at Octavia Kennedy ESQ. That's where you're going to find all of my tips and tricks, and just a little bit of information about what it means to have asset protection. That's everything from your business, holding companies, trust, what it looks like so that you can protect and shield those assets from creditors, from bankruptcy, from divorce, all those types of things that are coming after you. Okay. You can also find out more information at cantonlaw.com. That's my website. You can also book a consultation there with me and just find out different information from business, contracts, trust, and estate planning as well.
Yeah, just picture you covered in money like Pablo, but you can keep your eyes closed, no 5-0. Pull up the day we swiping. Pull up the day we swiping. Pull up the day we swiping.
You need to be looking at your trust plan. Did you get married? Did you have a baby? Did you buy a property? Did you start a new business? Did you open up new bank accounts? Did you get, new life insurance policies? All of those things are part of your estate. Did you buy a new diamond ring or watch? You got your first rollie. I don't know. That needs to be in your assets. Okay. So make it an annual review so that you can make sure that you're shielded and that you're protected, and that your estate and trust plan are up to date.
So if a client was to come on board with you, you would prepare documents for them. And is it a lifetime? And are we lifetime client attorney relationship, or is it up to a period of time?
Sure. So when the engagement is created, usually it takes about 6 to 8 weeks to create the full trust plan, right? That's going to be everything that's going to be inclusive of your trust agreement, your will, your financial power of attorney, your healthcare powers of attorney, your living will, if you want to be an organ donor, if you want to be resuscitated, if you want food and hydration. It's going to give your HIPAA releases. So if you're in the hospital, someone can call and ask questions about you. You have to be able to release that information. You're going to have your final disposition. Do you want to be buried, cremated in a mausoleum? All these things, guys, that we know happen, but we don't want to talk about it. Right? So personal property. Do you want someone to have that new Rolex that you just bought? Maybe you want to
guns.
gift it.
Who's gonna get the guns? They always talk about the guns.
A gun trust. Gun trust. That's a whole nother. That's a gun trust. There's just a trust specific for guns and things of that nature. Wow. But you get all of those different types of things in your trust packaging, right? And so that's created, and then there is an annual review during the first year to make sure that you funded it properly, you changed assets and titles over into it, that is really operational for what you've created. Okay. Now, if you have specific things that you want to do outside of the initial work that's done, like transferring properties, or maybe you started a new business, or maybe you purchased an existing business, then you want to transfer those things into the trust, then that may be an additional fee in the future as you acquire those things.
Mm-hmm. So we will come to you and you will create our irrevocable trust for a period of time, and we review it with you annually.
That is correct. So your whole package for your irrevocable trust is all inclusive. That's all inclusive, right? Okay. That's all of the things that I mentioned is inclusive in that, and that's a done deal. As you can, and then we have the annual review that first year. And then if you have any additional things that you want to do, like transfer properties or businesses, then we will assess that at that time. And then there will be a flat fee associated with those services.
Amazing. That's so important. I remember my cousin, he was trying to get a trust, and he was just telling me all the paperwork and all the running around that he had to do in order to create the trust. Mm-hmm. I think that it was great for him to do that because he has a lot of properties and stuff, but we don't really think about something so technical, right? That's a very technical thing. And I think that even for myself, when I heard him talking about it, was like, dang, I probably should do that. But it was just so technically, like, just so much technical stuff that I was just kind of like, I think I'm gonna wait on that. But
right.
A lot of us don't think about that. Like, we don't have the capacity to comprehend everything that you just said. Is just like, we literally would have to pay you because a lot of people aren't going to understand that, even just on a basic level.
Yeah. And I think a lot of it too, especially for our community, we always wait until we're old to make those types of decisions. But one of the things that we run into as we age is having the capacity to make those decisions. I know my father deals with dementia, right? And so we had to place him into a nursing home. And this is a whole nother, gem that I'm gonna drop to y'all. And knowledge is that we're not the wealthiest family, but we do have some assets, and we needed to protect those assets so that he could even qualify for some public assistance and Medicaid and Medicare, right? They look at what's in your bank accounts, what assets do you own, and those types of things, right? So my family was able to secure some of those public benefits for my father, but we still have to pay out of pocket once a month because it's not enough. And so retirement and long-term care planning, all of that is helpful through a trust, an irrevocable trust. If we didn't have that in place for our family, then, we would have been in a tough situation for my father and having to place him into a nursing home now going on the 3rd year this coming April. So it's bigger than that, but not waiting until we're too old, not waiting until we've exposed our assets throughout our entire lifetime. And just like the Kobe Bryant example, tomorrow's not promised to us. And what do we have in place today to protect our families and to protect our children in the event that we are not here? And the way that you do that is by starting to plan early, taking your time and doing it right, doing your research, but getting those things in place so that you have peace of mind, and it helps you actually sleep better at night, knowing that if something were to happen to you, that your family and your assets are going to be protected.
I don't want to gloss over a point you just said. You just had this point, and I think that a lot of us go through this. You said that in order for your dad to get public assistance, you had these. You had these things in a trust, so they weren't attached to him, right?
That is correct.
Because most people, when we go to college, right? When we try to go to college, we try to get some type of funding to go to college, right? And they go off of, some of these W-2 or what we have. And they're like, well, you can't get XYZ because they make this amount of money or so it's like, if you have assets or you have all these things, right, you won't get any public assistance. But if we know, like, to your point, if we have these concepts early on, then we might be able to get a little bit more assistance. Because when my mom filled out for me to go to college, we weren't making any money. Like they were like, yeah, you can't get financial aid. Y'all make too much money.
Right. And you're like, well, where's that? But you're absolutely right. That is a great example that if your parents at that particular time thought that they wanted to protect their assets in a different way, their home, maybe they had businesses, I don't know what they are, but they could have partnered those businesses, especially if they were entrepreneurs, they could have partnered those businesses with their trust, right? And so, a 90-10 split, for example, 90% of that liability or 90% of that business interest would have been inside of the trust. And then your parents would have only had 10% of that. And so as an example, if revenue for that year was $100,000, where $90,000 of that would have been in the trust, and then $10,000 is what your parents would have, essentially had. So that's just a way to do that.
We got to clap it up for that. They don't understand what that was right there. Yeah. They don't understand what that was right there, man. Mm-hmm. And that was a Jim bar. Boy, I'm leaving. I ain't gonna say no more. Go ahead, y'all. Y'all got it, dog. I don't want to keep it going. Y'all got it right there. She blessing the podcast, and this is for our culture where we really, really try to hone in on these breaking generational curses, concepts, and strategies.
I just think it's dope by us asking you questions and you shedding light on things that we may not know about. That's helping someone else out there in the world get privy to this. Because at the end of the day, unless you're an attorney that specializes in what you specialize in, like you said, it's best to partner up with a law firm if you're, you want to take this route. And then you touched on another great point. Don't wait until you get old. Yeah. I mean, and honestly, what they say, two things that are certain: death and taxes, right?
Yes.
And death is a part of life for everybody, and it's scary, and people don't like to talk about it, but nobody knows when that date or time is coming. And even personally, I know someone that's close to someone that I'm close to, he passed unexpectedly. And in my mind, I don't know the details of what his situation was, but I'm pretty sure he wasn't set up. You know what I'm saying? And it's just like, that could be. I'm scared to even talk about it because I don't even want to, talk that into it. But it's something that we got to get serious about and within our community, because that is how a lot of people from other communities preserve wealth or pass wealth on to their, to other generations. Mm-hmm. And but if you're only thinking about me right now, you gotta put your last name first, and that's why it's important and significant that people need to hear this. This is you may not be where you want to be, but it doesn't mean you can't start to at least entertain and flirt. You know what I mean, with the concept of this is stuff that I had to really take seriously because it's gonna happen.
Yeah,
it's just when it happens, and 10 times out of 10 when that happens, you don't. It just happens. So you don't want to get caught. Yeah, you don't want to be in a situation, especially if you have little ones. If you don't want to do it for yourself, think about your family, your little ones, your last name first. And I just want to emphasize the importance of that for folks out there, myself included. You know what I mean? Like it's really is real. You know what I mean? And when you guys, forgive me if I'm going off on a tangent, but this really hit home and it resonated with me. There's have you ever heard of H.J. Russell, Octavia? Does that sound familiar?
H.J. Russell?
Yeah.
Right off top, explain to me.
So H.J. Russell is he passed, but he was he started doing new construction in Atlanta during segregation in Georgia. He even built a town out there and all this cool stuff. And I read his autobiography. And in the book, the one thing that he emphasizes how he's like lining his kids up from an early age, and a part of not just setting them up for for when they're actually in the world for their for when you're gone, because you could build a huge empire and it's like when you're gone, that's it. No, like keep it going, and this is what you would do. These are the steps that you would take to keep it going. So I just really want to emphasize for people out there, even if I even heard, it's crazy. I even heard. Are you familiar with Mark Kohler?
Mark Kohler. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So he dropped the line. He said, people think that this stuff is only important if you're married. He's like, it's even more important if you're single.
It is more important when you're single. You're absolutely right. All of the other things that I mentioned.
So even just to emphasize that, even if you're not married, or some people are like, I'm never gonna get married. Man, you still, because yeah, when it gets, I know Nipsey Hussle's situation has recently got settled, and whatever the case, but I don't know the ins and outs of that, but just the stuff you want to have in order, that's all. Just wanted to touch on that, like how it is very important that y'all definitely make sure you tap in with the queen, if you service people across all 50 states, right?
Sure. So I service people across all 50 states. If I can't help you directly, I am also a member of Wealth Counsel. In Wealth Counsel, we have attorney affiliates throughout the actual country. And so if I can't help you with something directly, I can definitely refer you to an attorney, even if it's an attorney for different areas of law. I'm a part of many different networks. So if you're looking for somebody that's in, specifically in criminal law or family law when it comes to divorce or custody, those types of things, we have over 15,000 attorneys within our Wealth Counsel network.
So long story short, get with Octavia for all your legal and contractual and estate planning needs.
Yes. I would like to add to that too, because Wealth Counsel is one of the organizations that I'm in, but a part of just any legal work, always learning. Like, I'm a forever life student, right? And not just because I'm this brainiac person, but I'm curious. I want to know what's going on. What are the changes? What are the trends and what's happening? And that's why I'm in memberships like Wealth Counsel or other organizations that is going to continue to feed that knowledge to me so that I can in turn learn it and give it back to my community, right? And I assure you guys that those who are in those communities, they do not look like us at all. They don't look like us at all. And so it is very, very important for us to get this knowledge in our community for our culture, because Black and Brown are the least amount to pass on an inheritance to their children.
I wanted to say that too. You said it. You said it so elegantly, because I wanted to thank you for that, because. And, being on this podcast, because as I'm in the community and I'm also in school, I do see that our community, this type of information is not widely known. Like,
no.
You're not
if you guys look out there and you follow anyone who's talking about trust or talking about asset protections, they don't look like us. Not that have credentials behind their name. For Our Culture is the best, the number one financial literacy podcast out here. Tap in, baby. If you
let's go.
You gotta change your mindset. Take control of your mindset. You gotta change your mindset. Take control of your mindset. Your mindset. Your mindset. Your mindset.